who invested the minimum 1,000 shares, that was the minimum shares required to be bought for BTC. For that year, they made 86 pula as dividend. Because the government like to tax us, dividends are also taxed. So there's a 7.5% tax on dividends. I think with the new, what do you call this? The new tax that is coming next month. I don't know. I think they said that the dividends tax has been increased to 10% or something, but I'll confirm with that. So if they charge you 7.5% on the 86 pula, which means the total amount of money you got as cash in hand for that year was 79 pula 55 tab. This makes it, you have made 8% return. For that year, you made 8.8% return on your shares. So it's the same for all the other years. The other year was 13.7%, 12.2%, 8.6%. Last year, I told you 2020, June 2020, BTC on their financial statement, they said they're not declaring any dividends because they've been affected by COVID, so they didn't. So that's why for that year, people made only a return on investment of 2.9%. But let me tell you, these returns per year, they're very much higher than what you get from a normal savings account if your money was in a savings account. So people who invested 1,000 pula on BTC 5 years back, they've made in total 453 pula 99 tab, which is almost 45% of the amount of money that they've invested on BTC. But this table also shows you that the more shares you have, the more dividends you will have, right? So for me, with BTC, with the IPO, I bought 20,000 shares. From the 20,000 shares, this is the amount of money that I've been getting that I got every year. My annual return per my 20,000 shares. 2016, I got 1.7, 2017, 2.9, 2018, 2.6, 2019, 1.8, 2020, I got 626. So on total, in the last 5 years, I made 9,000 pula from investing in BTC. So this is almost 45% of the amount of money that I invested more BTC. So this is it shows you that you can earn dividends from investing on shares, right? However, you should not get excited yet, because what about the share price? The share price for BTC hasn't gone up. It went up a little bit after it was initially listed, but over the years, it has been going down. The current trading share price for BTC is 0.7 pula. So this is 70 tab. If I was to sell my 20,000 BTC shares today, I will get only 14,000 pula, minus maybe 200 pula fees for selling. So I'll get maybe 13,000 pula 800. Whereas I had bought the shares for 20,000. However, I can tell you that 20,000, my 13,000 plus the 9,000 that I made for dividends could still count as a gain for me, right? Any questions about the BTC? I hope it doesn't go. Questions? We are good.
It said that the meeting has no time limit now.
Oh yes, I was hoping for that. Okay. So any questions about BTC? I can't see you raising your hand, so unmute yourself and say something if you need to say. So you can see how you can gain or lose, but if you have gained a lot of dividends, it can offset the loss from the loss in share value.
Yes, it's quite clear. Thank you. I think it's also interesting how you compared it to putting money in the bank, because I think most of us just put money in the bank.
In a savings account, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And then my experience with Choppies. Choppies was a wave of fast capital gain. This means the share price increased at an alarming rate soon after it was listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange. Then there was suspension, there was delisting. No, it was not delisted, it was suspended. Then it was relisted on the Botswana Stock Exchange. So the IPO for Choppies was done in 2011, and then January it was listed on the Botswana, January 2012, it was listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange. It was oversubscribed by 400%. So a lot of people were interested on this, on Choppies. So the initial public offering was 1 Pula 15 tab. The highest share price Choppies ever reached was around 5 Pula. I'm going to tell you, a lot of people made profit out of Choppies who had bought from the IPO. Because when it went up to 4 Pula to 5 Pula, people started selling. Imagine if I had bought 1,000 Pula Choppies shares, I would have used 1,150 Pula to buy the shares. And then 2 years later, it was worth 5 Pula. Then I'm selling my 1,000 shares. I'll get 5,000 Pula from that. So that is more than 100% profit from the capital gain. So it was the perfect time to sell for Choppies then. Unfortunately for me, Choppies IPO, when it was initially put to the public, I was in Australia, so I didn't buy at the IPO, but I got interested along the way to own some few shares, because back then I was still starting to own learning how to own shares. So in 2013, a year later after Choppies was listed, I bought just 1,100 shares from Choppies. You can see that the IPO was 1 Pula 15. For me, I bought the shares at 2 Pula 44 Pula per share. I reluctantly bought them. They were very expensive. They were more than half. I mean, they were twice the price that they were initially listed at. But I thought because they were growing at an alarming rate, I could benefit from that as well. So I bought just that. I was starting to. It was my first time. No, it wasn't. It was my second time buying shares. So I was starting out only those 1,000. So that was what I was owning. So even by 2018, when Choppies was being was being suspended, I had that 1,100 shares. So Choppies failed to publish annual financial statement for the year end June 2018. Share price then dropped by 60%. And I don't remember how much it was, but it went from 2 Pula to around 67 tab in a day. So it was suspended in October 2018. It has since resumed trading mid 2020 last year. So it's trading at 69 tab. So currently, I think since last year after re-enlisting, it's still trading at the lowest price. It's still 60 tab. I don't know if people are still reluctant to invest on Choppies. So what would you do if stock price fell by 60%? What would you have done if it was you with Choppies? So like it's 2018, Choppies was selling at 2 Pula. Then one morning you wake up, it's selling at 60 tab. What would you do? Anyone?
I think for me,
I think you hold.
if
I would have
you go.
held the stress.
Why me? You can go then, Laboha.
No, I was saying that for me, if it's at the point of the 60% loss, there's not much that you can do. It's just to wait and see what happens with the company. And if a company is being suspended, it's not even a given that they'll be back in the stock exchange. But I think if you are closely monitoring your shares and following the news, when things sound suspicious, that's the best time to be selling. When Choppies failed to publish, maybe that was the best time for people to sell a portion of their shares if they still wanted to hold on to some within that company.
So when do you sell? Before the share price drops? Just before the share price drops? Or you wouldn't know when it's gonna drop?
Yeah, but I think if you are following the news and these things pop up, even if you had a broker, that's how they move the money around, by looking at what is happening with the news.
Yeah.
So you can decide before then. But if it's now 60%, there's not much you can do. You just sit tight.
Thank you, Laurent. Anybody else with a different opinion? Okay. So she's very right. So you have to be very cautious when a company is going like that, when suspicious things start cropping like this. But however, this is what I did. Let's see. So because for me, at the time, I didn't have Choppies shares. I only had that 1,000 because I knew Choppies is a big retail supermarket in Botswana, because I knew it had prominent figures that wouldn't let it collapse. I decided to take a risk and bought. I only had 1,000 shares on Choppies, so I wanted 10,000 more at that 60 something time. So this is what I did. I purchased more just before the suspension. So I didn't know that it was going to get suspended anyway. But when it dropped, I just decided to buy. So I bought the 10,180 shares, somewhere at 67 tab, somewhere at 68 tab. I just sent my broker, said, oh, I want 10,000 shares. But then she was not able to get me 10,000 at a go. So she got she bought those 2,000 at that price, 7,000 at that price. So after it got suspended, I decided that to wait patiently, wait for the increase in price. So now it has been relisted. I'm still patiently waiting, so that from 60 tab, the only way I think is up. As long as it hasn't been delisted, I know that now at some point in time, the share price has to increase. So if it goes up to 2 pula, I'll be able to share, maybe sell my shares at 2 pula, but I don't know. So it's a risk that it's a game that you play within the stock exchange. So just to give you another flavor of some of the companies on the Botswana Stock Exchange, Letshego versus Botswana Insurance, something holding BIFM. So with Letshego, I decided its shares also, it made a loss. I think was it 2019? So its share price started to fall. It was around 1 pillar something at some point in time. Currently, Letshego is selling at 75 tab. Because also I did not have much shares on Letshego, I decided to invest last year. I decided to get 20,000 Letshego shares from that they were selling at 70 tab. So tracking the dividends for Letshego, June 2019, there were 4.3 tab, December 7.7 tab. So total for that year was 12 tab. But 2019, I did not have Letshego. 2020 share price was 70 tab. So June 3.9 tab. Currently, for just this month, they've just declared for the end of December 8.3 tab per share. So for the whole of 2020, it will be 12.2. So just in the first year that I've invested in Letshego, I've already earned 2,400 dividends. So this is 11% of